Well, to make sense of all you've heard so far, I'm now being joined in the studio by the current affairs analyst and professor of communications at Bayes University in Abuja, Professor Adeniyi. Thank you so much for joining us, Prof.
Thank you very much.
Well, you would have heard of my conversation with these two gentlemen on INEC's decision to prosecute close to 200 electoral offenders out of 774 that were identified by the Inspector General of Police. And so what do you make of the statements by both gentlemen?
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting development that we are having prosecution, because we've been saying before now that the bane of our democracy, of most of our processes, is that offenses are committed, but there are no consequences. You know, there are no apprehensions, no prosecution, and no sanctioning. Because the essence of prosecution and sanctioning at the end of the day is to deter. So when there's no deterrence, of course, what do you expect? There's not going to be, some kind of lessons for those coming behind not to commit the same infraction or the same offense. So the fact that we're having this is a welcome development, no doubt, but there are also concerns, Interestingly, 774, it just reminded me of the number of local governments that we have in this country.
When I thought of that, it's like, I hope it's not one per local government.
And of course, out of the 774, only 220, 200 and something.
215, out of 215, 196 only.
Yes, still very unfortunate. But maybe we should also commend the fact that we are doing something anyway. It will have been better than situations in the past where nothing is being done. But there are also questions around the delay. The elections took place about more than a year ago, and we're having prosecution now. What has been happening in the last 1 year? I understand that it is pro bono, thanks to the Nigerian Bar Association, no doubt. Welcome development as well, that it is pro bono. But there are still questions that can be asked around when something is pro bono. There could be some limitations to it in terms of commitment, in terms of rigor, in terms of level of obligation. What's wrong with the state? Why can't the state not be responsible through the instrumentality of INEC itself and through the instrumentality of all its agencies, the police and all the security agencies? I would have preferred it to be coming from that line, that direction, much more than what an organization, a non-governmental organization in the class in which you can put the MBA is rather doing. But that's not to say that their effort is not commendable. It's commendable, but we're still saying that there are still some relevant pieces that we have to put in the jigsaw for it to be well fit. And
what do you make of the nature of electoral offenses? I mean, one of the prominent ones was this issue of vote buying, which he says that we should actually put it in proper perspective.
That is voter inducement,
not vote buying.
I think that's also very, very important. It can be any of those. Inducement is very concerning, because when you induce, it means that the election is not fair. The election is not free, because it's not coming, your decision is not coming from your own free will, your own volition. It's coming from some kind of...
From an induced perspective.
From an induced perspective. The fact that your decision process has been affected by an exogenous forces external to you, so it becomes problematic, and it takes it away from the ideal process, of election, which is supposed to be an expression of your own free will. But that's the character of our electoral process for now, which is very unfortunate. And I found it's also very interesting. You raised some very fundamental questions to them around the definition of giving. There's also the sociology of giving. Sometimes giving can be very contextual. Sometimes people can give because they are kind-hearted, because they want to help somebody.
And it's in our nature, culturally.
Culturally, sometimes even the religions, consistent with some of the meta-narratives, think that if you do not give, you're not going to get,
receive.
You're not going to receive, So different context, but again, which means that we have to go the whole length trying to prove that the giving, when it comes to election, is actually for the purpose of preventing a free election from happening. And that could be laborious. Whether laborious or not, no doubt, it doesn't really matter in the circumstance. What matters is let's go ahead and ensure that there's sanction, or there's prosecution and sanctioning. But it's a good place to start, even though I'm arguing that there are still miles to cover.
And some of the other offenses include dereliction of duty, criminal conspiracy, disorderly conduct at election venues, unlawful possession of arms on election day, snatching and destroying of INEC electoral materials. And I'm interested in that dereliction of duty. So when INEC officials or ad hoc staff don't come to the polling unit on time, will they be prosecuted?
Yeah, they should be prosecuted. And of course, you also cited a very important example of failure to transmit result to IREF, which is also dereliction somewhat, and it's also actionable, something you can also prosecute. It's an offense. Yes, it's good that we're identifying these offenses, but what do we do after the identification? If we identify and we do not do anything, then it becomes simply academic. Something for the records or archives. We've got to take action, and it is the action that we take that will prevent reoccurrence. And if we want to grow our democracy, we just have to continue to dig deeper in the line of efficiency and productivity. And of course, there's another point that is raised around voter education. I don't think that our problem is voter education. Maybe at this stage, going forward, what we need is actually behavior change voter education. Because the average. What
do you mean by that? Actually,
I will try to explain. The average Nigerian actually knows how to vote. Sometimes you see INEC engaging in very expensive campaign in the build-up to elections on how to vote, because they keep introducing new mechanisms, new technologies. But it doesn't take time before the average citizen understands this thing, because they want to exercise their civic responsibility. So that's not a problem. But what you still see happening is that you still see circumvention of the processes, perversion of the processes, such that when they cannot have their way, they destroy the processes. And in destroying the processes, they also get induced. They get involved in all kinds of shenanigans. Sometimes they vote in the wrong person deliberately and forgetting the future, forgetting their immediate future that the election is supposed to serve, through bringing in the right person that will bring about development. So it is that kind of education that we actually need to educate the people on the importance of their vote. It's not just by exercising your right, but that you are determining your future by who you vote for. That's the kind of behavior change communication that we need, voter education that we need. We have to make it deep-seated. Maybe we should be thinking of the guerrilla kind of communication, the kind of communication that will scare the people, know that it's your future, that you are affecting negatively by voting the wrong person. All right. Because year we keep voting, we keep doing campaigns, and of course nothing is changing. You still see the election, you still see the same thing, no creativity even in the way crimes are committed, electoral offenses are committed. You still see the same pattern repeating itself. So it's just 2 steps forward. How do you say it? How do you put it now? 2 steps forward, one step backward. Yes.
Yeah. 1 step forward, 2 steps backwards.
Yeah, something like that. Yes.
Yeah. While you were speaking, you just reminded me of this theory by Professor E.M. Rogers, diffusion of innovation theory. And of course, that theory actually states that, look, when you're introducing a new technology or innovation, you have to take your time, because there are early adopters, there are those who will stay away from it. So could it be that INEC's introduction of new technologies is also helping people to not to properly understand how to effect their civil rights in a very good way, that it will prevent the system from being overwhelmed? In terms of technology, for example, you have lots of invalid votes that we could see during that last general election. And I'm thinking, from what you have said, that could have also contributed to it. And then, of course, the issues of the accreditation process, the INEC has tried to match all of them. But how can we ensure that technology is not introduced too much and then too late before elections?
I doubt if we can avoid technology in the age that we are in.
Yeah, but once it's introduced too close to the election, then it becomes difficult for majority of people to be able to know how to use them.
But sometimes it's not even very difficult. Most of the technology that they are introducing, they are user-friendly. And it doesn't take time before people, the average citizen use the smartphone, for instance. Smartphone is technology, and it can be very sophisticated. Some of them can be, but before you know it, people master it, and they are at home with it. So many technologies are around us. That's the 21st century world that we are in. We can't deny that, and if we're introducing it into our patterns and our particularities as reflected in the electoral process, it's a welcome development. But I see what you mean, really. That is, they are being introduced towards close to the election. Well, sometimes again, even at that, people still master it. Most of the time, it is not the technology that is causing the problem, but our attitude to the technology, or the fact that we try to manipulate the technology or completely circumvent it.
Circumvent it,
that's actually the problem.
Because we're too eager to want our candidate to win.
Yes, because in the world of artificial intelligence, you know, I mean, we can't run away from technology. Everything around us is automated. And if you do not get into it, of course, the world will leave you behind. And you become analog, you know, you even become almost primitive, you know, if not dated, you know, and nobody wants to be in that position. And of course, if you take it away from the individual onto the national, corporate, you know, whole level, you want to say the same thing, that no nation, no society will want to be left behind. So it's a welcome development that we should continue to introduce it. It helps perfection, really. It helps the introduction of human predilections, you know, human proclivities. It prevents them from overriding the process. But in our own case, we still find ways of perverting it. And that's why I'm talking about the need for proper behavioral change.
Yeah, of course.
Voter education.
You are a professor of communication, so behavioral change communication is very important.
It's very, very important.
INEC should actually take a look at adopting that. Well, as we try to round off this conversation, I want you to talk about the urgent need for a National Electoral Offences Commission. How soon do you think we should be having one?
Yeah, I think it's been on the cards from the Ways Commission, you know, reports. You know, there have been suggestions, but again, you have to put that side by side, like Mr. Uzi said, with, you know, the call for the reduction in the number of agencies we have. I'm aware that EFCC is also asking for their own commission, corruption commission, just so that things can be, cases can be properly handled and quickly too, because of the reported frustrations in the regular judicial process, the regular criminal justice process. So it might be a worthy call after all, but what about the question of costs? You know, what about the question of resources that INEC keeps complaining about, correctly or incorrectly? All these things will have to come into play. But I don't think it's about the number of commission that we need, that really matter. Or maybe we'll create 1,000 commission, or maybe an independent commission to help us prosecute cases. You know, if you create even more than 1 or 2 or 3, you know, and the people's attitude towards the processes still remains the same thing, they will find ways of perverting it, you know. I mean, it's just attitudinal, really. And that's why overall we're talking about the need for value reorientation, you know. But our values for now is still very, very problematic. It's abysmal, and that's where I think we should address, you know, before we can talk about real progress as a people.
And just before I let you go, why is it difficult for us to see a very big politician being, you know, prosecuted for an electoral offense?
Well,
I have to ask them that.
I also had one of your resource persons said that a rec was prosecuted or is being prosecuted. Overall, you cannot see it. You cannot expect a difference in the electoral system as much as, I mean, from what you see in the larger society. In other sector. The law is always there, but the law catches the have-not faster than it catches the haves, you know, because the have, they've got the means, the resources, you know, and again,
find their way out.
Find their way out. Sometimes we say again, you know, that yes, the law may be there, but you know, it is meant for the poor, not for the rich, you know, because hardly would you see it is easier for a poor man. I don't know, but anyway, it just maybe we should just conclude by saying that it is easier for the poor man to get jailed in this country, unfortunately, than for the rich man or for the elite, you know, because they got everything that it takes.
I'm afraid that's where we'll have to stop it. Yeah, I mean, a very good day. I mean, like I told them, it will be a very good day if we are able to see former INEC chairman also standing in the dock for refusing to do the right thing.
Yeah, if they are found guilty.
None of that. The former presidential candidate
we should just wish that they are governorship. If they are found guilty.
If they are
culpable for
All right, we must thank you so much, Professor Abiodun Adeniyi of the School of Communications at the Base University in Abuja, and then of course he's also a Arise analyst. We must thank you so much for your immense wealth of knowledge, and we'll continue to tap from that. Well, that's how it's been for this edition of Arise Prime Time. Do join us again tomorrow from me and the entire team here in Abuja. Goodbye and thank you for watching. I'm Summer Sambo.